Have you ever looked around at the brokenness, the divorces, the relationships crumbling to dust, and asked yourself, is this all it is? Is marriage really just a piece of paper, a temporary contract we can rip up the moment it stops making us happy? I'm telling you, the enemy has sold the world, and even the church, a devastating lie, and it's poisoning our most sacred relationships from the inside out. But what if the reason so many marriages are failing isn't a lack of love, but a catastrophic lack of understanding? What if the secret to an unbreakable, storm-proof marriage has been hidden in plain sight in the scriptures this whole time? Today, we're going to expose that lie for what it is. We are not talking about 5 easy tips for a happier relationship. No, we are uncovering God's divine blueprint for a true, holy, and powerful covenant. The revelation you are about to receive has the power to resurrect a marriage that feels dead and turn a good marriage into an unshakable fortress for the glory of God. Before we go any further, I've noticed something. A huge percentage of the people who are blessed by these videos every week are not actually subscribed. If you believe your marriage is worth fighting for and you want to arm yourself with spiritual truth, do me a favor and click that subscribe button right now. Don't let the algorithm keep these life-saving messages from you. Now let's get to work. Well, let's get right down to it, shall we? If we're being honest, the sacred institution of marriage is facing a real crisis of meaning in our world today. It's not that people have stopped getting married, not at all. The issue is that we're building these lifelong unions on the wrong foundation. We've been handed a broken blueprint, my friend. Society has subtly convinced us to view marriage as a contract, a sort of emotional business deal. It's an "I'll do my part as long as you do yours" arrangement, completely dependent on feelings, performance, and mutual benefit. Think about it. That's how most people operate. But this contractual mindset is a house built on sand. It's a human invention, a flimsy framework that can't possibly bear the weight of a lifetime commitment, because feelings, as we all know, are as fickle as the wind. When the deal no longer feels profitable, when the happiness account runs low, the world tells us to cut our losses and walk away. This fundamental misunderstanding is the very source of the decay we see, turning what was meant to be a sacred vow into a temporary, disposable agreement. It takes a profound act of faith to reject this worldly wisdom and seek something deeper, a truth that requires real sacrifice and a desire for true holiness. But here's where the light breaks in. God's original design, his divine blueprint, was never a contract. Oh no, he established marriage as a covenant, and believe me, the difference between the two is as vast as the heavens are above the earth. A contract is built on the shaky ground of if, then. It's entirely conditional. If you make me happy, then I'll stay. If you meet my needs, then I'll love you. It's all about performance, a ledger of give and take. But a covenant is something else entirely. It's forged in the fire of an unconditional promise. It boldly declares, even if you fail me, I will. Even when it hurts, I will. Even when you are at your worst, I will still honor my promise. This is a radical, all-in type of love that mirrors God's own covenantal heart for his people. Just look at the covenant he made with Abraham back in Genesis 15. It was a one-sided promise, based entirely on God's faithfulness, not Abraham's ability to hold up his end of the bargain. That is the model for marriage. It's a call to a higher level of commitment, a pathway to a deeper holiness that isn't rooted in what you get, but in what you are willing to give, all fueled by a stubborn faith. This covenantal love is the bedrock, the solid rock that Jesus talked about in Matthew 7. When you build on a contract, the storms of life, and they will come, are guaranteed to wash your foundation away. Disagreements, financial strain, illness, the sheer exhaustion of raising a family, these things will expose the cracks in a contractual marriage because it's ultimately about self-preservation. But a covenant is about self-sacrifice. It's about willingly laying down your rights, your expectations, and even your personal quest for happiness for the sake of another soul and, more importantly, for the glory of God. It's a commitment that says, "My love for you is not a negotiation, it's a promise." Wow, just let that sink in for a second. In our self-obsessed culture, that is a revolutionary thought. This vow isn't just made to your spouse, it's made in the presence of God Himself. He becomes the third strand in that cord, the divine witness and the source of strength to uphold the promise. This transforms the marriage from a mere human partnership into a sacred trust, a holy mission where true holiness is forged. So, how in the world do we begin to shift our entire mindset from contract to covenant? It starts with what Paul calls the renewing of your mind in Romans 12:2. It's an intentional daily decision to reject the world's cheap definition of love and marriage and to embrace God's holy standard. This is a courageous act of faith. It means choosing day in and day out to see your spouse through the eyes of grace, not with a critical spirit that keeps a running tally of their faults. It means that when they inevitably mess up, and they will, just as you will, your first response isn't, "You broke the terms of our deal," but rather, "How can I extend the same unconditional covenantal love to you that Christ has shown me?" This, of course, requires immense sacrifice. It demands that you forgive when every fiber of your being wants to hold a grudge, that you serve when you're bone-tired, and that you choose love when it feels like the hardest thing in the world to do. It's about understanding your commitment isn't just to a flawed human being, but to an institution God Himself ordained as a training ground for holiness. Ultimately, choosing to build your marriage on the rock of covenant is an act of spiritual warfare. Make no mistake, the enemy of your soul despises covenant because it is a living, breathing picture of the faithful, unwavering heart of God. He will whisper every lie imaginable to convince you that your marriage is just a piece of paper, a deal that can and should be broken when it no longer serves you. He'll tell you that sacrifice is foolish and that your personal happiness is the ultimate prize. But the truth, the powerful, liberating truth, is that a covenantal marriage is a fortress against the enemy's attacks. It's a shining beacon of hope in a hopelessly broken world, a living testimony that promises still mean something, that commitment has supernatural power, and that love is not a flimsy feeling but a fierce, world-changing choice. Your marriage is so much bigger than just the two of you. It's about reflecting the glory and faithfulness of God. And that, my friend, is a foundation that can withstand any storm. But this foundation is just the beginning. What happens when two imperfect, different people try to build a life on it? The Bible has a mysterious and profound phrase for this process: becoming one flesh. So, we've laid the foundation of covenant, but now we arrive at the beautiful and, let's face it, sometimes baffling mystery of becoming one flesh, Genesis 2:24. For centuries, people have gotten this twisted, thinking it means losing your personality and becoming a clone of your spouse. But that's a cheap imitation of the real thing. God's divine plan isn't about erasing individuality. It's about a holy fusion. It's a sacred mathematics where 1 + 1 equals a new, unified one. This journey isn't about losing yourself. It's about becoming more through a bond that transcends the physical, touching spirit, soul, and body. It's an act of pure faith, trusting that God knew exactly what He was doing when He brought two unique people together under one covenant. Think of it as a fusion of complementary forces, not a melting pot of sameness. It's where strength meets nurture, where logic embraces intuition. God masterfully brings different personalities together, not to create chaos, but to paint a fuller, more complete picture of His own multifaceted nature. So that tension you feel from your differences, that's not a sign you're incompatible, as the world would scream at you. No, that friction is God's divine sandpaper. It's the very tool He uses for your mutual sanctification, smoothing out your rough edges and shaping you both into the likeness of His Son. It takes a deep commitment to view those differences as a gift, not a curse, a key part of your shared pursuit of holiness. When a husband and wife truly embrace this one flesh mystery, they stop fighting against their differences and start leveraging them for their God-given mission. They become an unbreakable team, covering each other's weaknesses and amplifying each other's strengths, creating a powerful force for the kingdom. But be warned, this divine design is under constant assault. There's a fierce battle of narratives raging, a clash between the world's cheap version of marriage and God's sacred purpose. And the world, especially Hollywood, has been telling a very different, very dangerous story. All right, let's get right into the trenches, because there is a war being fought for the very soul of your marriage. The battleground exists in the stories we choose to believe. On one side, you've got the Hollywood narrative, a flashy, feel-good story where marriage is a project for personal happiness. In this version, your feelings are the ultimate truth, the compass for your commitment. When the going gets tough, the script says it's a sign to exit, because the ultimate goal is your own fulfillment. This story is built on the flimsy lies of soulmates. Love should be easy, and the seductive whisper that you deserve to be happy, no matter the cost. This mindset is pure poison to a covenant, making self-gratification the goal, not holiness. Then you have God's narrative, the biblical vision, and wow, it's a radically different story. This isn't a project for personal happiness, but a divine project for mutual holiness. In God's story, your sacred covenant is the guide, not your fleeting emotions. Hardship isn't a signal to abandon ship. It's a God-given opportunity to build spiritual muscle. This is a story of profound sacrifice, where you're called to lay down your life for your spouse in love, just as Christ did for the church. Ephesians 5:25. It takes a rugged, tenacious faith to believe that God's plan for your sanctification is infinitely more valuable than your temporary comfort or happiness. Do you see the clash? One story champions self-love, the other champions self-sacrifice. One leads to a disposable view of marriage, while the other leads to lifelong devotion. We are bombarded by the Hollywood narrative, 24/7, so we must be intentional about living by God's story. This means actively rejecting the world's lies. There isn't a perfect soulmate out there. There is an imperfect person with whom you have made a holy covenant. Love is not easy. It is a choice. This battle of beliefs dramatically impacts how we interpret the very words we say at the altar, especially when we get to the part about "for worse." Now, let's talk about the vows themselves. Those sacred words, for better, for worse, in sickness and in health. We have a tendency to treat them like beautiful poetry, something lovely to recite at a ceremony and then promptly forget. But my friend, those vows aren't poetry. They are a spiritual war cry. They are the very engine of your covenant. The for better part, that's the easy part. Anyone can maintain a commitment when life is a highlight reel. The real test, where your faith gets forged in fire, is in the for worse. It's in those gut-wrenching moments of crisis, betrayal, and disappointment that your promise transitions from mere words into a living, breathing reality. Our disposable culture screams at you to run for the hills the moment the worse arrives. It whispers, "You didn't sign up for this, and this isn't making you happy anymore." But your holy covenant calls you to plant your feet and stand firm. To stay is a radical act of defiance in a world that discards everything. Honoring your promise during the worse is the ultimate act of loving sacrifice. It means choosing love when your spouse is battling an illness and can give nothing back. It means showing grace when they've made a financial blunder that hurts you both. This is the gritty, unglamorous work of holiness, a rugged choice to honor God when it costs you dearly. This is precisely where the power of your vow is revealed. It becomes a living sermon, a testament to the faithfulness of a God who never abandons us in our worst. Your commitment becomes a shining beacon of hope in a dark world. But let's be brutally honest. You cannot do this in your own strength. It's impossible. Trying to muscle through the worst of times on your own will only lead to bitterness and burnout. You need a power source outside of yourself. This is why a marriage of just two strands is so fragile. It desperately needs a third, unbreakable strand to make it strong. So where do you get the supernatural strength to live out this radical vow, especially in the worst? The answer comes from the wisest man who ever lived, King Solomon. He wrote, "A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken," Ecclesiastes 4:12. My friend, this is one of the most vital truths for your marriage in all of Scripture. A marriage without God is a fragile 2-strand cord. It's just you and your spouse, relying on your own limited strength, patience, and love. Under the crushing pressures of life, that 2-strand cord will always fray. It was never designed to hold on its own. It's an incomplete covenant. But when you intentionally and prayerfully weave Jesus Christ into the very fabric of your relationship, he becomes that third, unbreakable strand, and that changes everything. He is the divine superglue that holds your commitment together when you feel like you're falling apart. With Christ at the center, the entire dynamic is transformed. Forgiveness is no longer an impossible task. It becomes possible through his power. Grace begins to replace bitterness and scorekeeping. The strength to make the daily sacrifice that holiness demands doesn't come from your own depleted reserves, but from his infinite supply. This is a spiritual reality that you can build your life on. Inviting Christ to be that third strand is a daily, moment-by-moment act of faith. It's the simple choice to pray together, even for 30 seconds. It's opening the Bible and letting his truth be the ultimate authority in your decisions. It's choosing to serve your spouse not out of obligation, but as an act of worship to him. When Jesus is the center, your marriage stops being a small story about just the two of you. It gets swept up into a much grander narrative, a story with a purpose that stretches into eternity. Your union becomes a reflection of the gospel itself. This is where it all clicks into place. We've talked about covenant becoming one flesh and that unbreakable threefold cord. But why? What's the ultimate point? I'll tell you. The purpose of your marriage is infinitely bigger than your personal happiness. In Ephesians 5, the Apostle Paul pulls back the curtain and reveals the magnificent truth. Your marriage is designed to be a living, breathing sermon. It's meant to be a tangible picture for the world to see, showcasing the greatest love story of all time, the passionate, sacrificial love of Jesus for his bride, the church. This elevates your union from a private arrangement to a public ministry. This is a high and holy calling. This is where those two loaded words, submission and leadership, find their true meaning. Let's clear the air right now. Biblical submission for a wife is not about becoming a silent doormat. It is an act of incredible strength, wisdom, and faith. It's about willingly choosing to trust God's design and align with her husband's leadership as he seeks to follow Christ. And a husband's leadership, it's not about being a tyrant, far from it. It's a radical call to love his wife by making the ultimate sacrifice. As Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. Ephesians 5:25. It's a commitment to die to self for her spiritual and physical well-being. When a husband and wife embrace these gospel-shaped roles, their covenant becomes an unstoppable force for the kingdom. Their love story preaches a better sermon than any pastor ever could. It shows a skeptical world what it looks like to lay down your life for another, to forgive the unforgivable, and to love with a commitment that doesn't quit. This is the grand purpose. Two imperfect people, through daily faith and gritty acts of holiness, pointing everyone to a perfect and loving Savior. But what if that sermon feels like it's over? What if the flame has all but died out? Is there hope for a fresh start? Absolutely. Okay, but what if your marriage feels like it's already in ruins? What if the intimacy has evaporated and trust has been shattered, leaving only the cold ashes of resentment? Let me speak a word of hope directly to you. Our God is a master rebuilder. He specializes in bringing dead things back to life. But here's the key: you don't restore a relationship by waiting for the feelings to magically return. That's the world's backward formula. You rebuild by choosing to act in love first, trusting by faith that God will resurrect the feelings in His time. The flame is reignited by intentional acts of sacrifice, not by passive waiting. It all starts smaller than you think. Please, hear me on this. Don't try to solve a decade of distance in one conversation. That's a recipe for discouragement. The road to restoration is paved with tiny, consistent steps of obedience and commitment. It's the simple, humble act of offering a sincere apology without adding a "but" at the end. It's grabbing your spouse's hand and praying for just 30 seconds before bed. It's choosing to serve them in a small way, making coffee, taking out the trash, as an act of worship. These small choices are the kindling for a new fire in your covenant. The enemy wants you to believe it's hopeless, that the damage is irreversible. That is a lie straight from the pit of hell. With God, it is never too late. Your intentional acts of love and sacrifice are powerful spiritual weapons. They demonstrate your faith in the God of miracles and honor the vows you made. Each small, loving choice rebuilds a piece of the foundation. As you take these steps, you are not just repairing a partnership, you are preparing an altar, inviting God to do what only He can do. It's time to return to the sacred ground of your covenant and rededicate it all to Him. So now the choice is yours. Will you continue to treat your marriage like a flimsy, temporary contract? Or will you step onto the holy ground of a lifelong covenant with God Almighty at the very center? I have a question for you, and I want you to be honest in the comments below. After hearing this, what is the single biggest lie about marriage you are choosing to reject today? Your testimony could be the breakthrough someone else is praying for. If this message stirred something in your spirit, prove you're serious about this fight by subscribing to the channel and ringing that notification bell. We are building an army for godly marriages here, and don't go anywhere. The video that's appearing on your screen right now is the one I strongly feel you need to watch next. Click it, and let's continue the journey.